What's up, guys? It's your boy Red Ghost, and welcome to my YouTube channel. So, hang on, roll out the window. If you guys see smoke, it's actually my vape moving forward. Anyway, so today's video, I wanted to talk about the absence of myself and the content, the producing, the explanation, if you will. And just to let you guys know that the consistent content is coming. I have been posting, but not as much. I'm actually getting a ton of equipment and have some really cool stuff to announce actually within the next couple of days. But anyway, moving forward to what I actually want to talk about here. So, I actually want to talk about Halo, its grassroots esports movement. What can we do as a community to start progressing ourselves further? Now, obviously, it seems more and more that we're actually relying more and more on 343 Industries, ESL, and such to provide certain things. As they should, being the developer and the tournament organizer, there should be some type of avenue for them to contact professional players, amateur players, etc. Now, for what they have publicly said, there are avenues and there are channels that they go through to contact professional players and stuff like that for the game. Now, as far as it's concerned, there are a few things that I want to talk about for Halo 5 and moving into Halo 6 and how these things in Halo 5 can help transition into Halo 6 to be even better. Okay, so the first thing is with Call of Duty, they have an integrated system in the UI of Call of Duty Infinite Warfare for game battles. Now, I know Infinite Warfare is dead, whatever, and World War II is coming out, and they're going to actually have the same integrated system. But what I want to talk about is why hasn't 343 Industries spoken to UMG, or maybe they're talking to MLG to partner next year? I'm not exactly sure, but let's just say that, they're sticking with ESL, MLG, Millennial Esports, all that stuff. So why haven't they come up with a integrated system for either UMG or Millennial Esports for players, competitive players, to be able to play in ladder matches, rank matches, and such like that without having to constantly go on Twitter to look for scrims, and they could just sit there, use the UI, use that menu specifically for the ladder, and be able to get a match and be able to play it right then and there. I think that's a feature that should be implemented into every future Halo game and every future Call of Duty game. In fact, every competitive game, period. I mean, that system is flawless, and how they're doing it just shows a lot about their personal care. Now, what Halo needs to do, in my personal opinion, is it needs to start taking pages out of Call of Duty's books. As far as it's concerned, they've gone back to boots on the ground. They've gone back to the original Call of Duty. They've gone back to what the fans have been wanting for years, and they've even said publicly that they're not going back to quote-unquote advanced techniques because people do not like it. It's not something that's generally accepted, and also it washes the gameplay. It doesn't make it interesting at all, or add any skill factor. It's really dumb. But besides the point, Halo 5 actually is interesting. I feel like if you actually took away Sprint and kept the rest of the abilities, and you had different maps that were smaller, that were more efficient for that kind of gameplay, I think with Halo 6, it could be a way better competitive game, and they would also have their innovative technology that they wanted to put forward in a Halo game, and then you have a blended mix that I think would work well. Now, besides all these points I'm making, I also just want to touch on a few other things. One of the things that has still got me confused to this day is why we have King of the Hill and Oddball and social game types, but they do not have a test setting at all for competitive. Now, Stronghold's CTF Slayer, they are not bad game types at all. CTF and Slayer being staples, and Strongholds being obviously the new game type that was introduced when Halo 5 released. Now, with that being said, Strongholds as a whole is a very interesting game type. But King of the Hill, even though it is quote-unquote hill-based, it's actually a lot different. And the strategies that are implemented within King of the Hill versus Strongholds, is very, very different. And it actually adds a complexity to the game. Obviously, with more game types, you have a meta change. With a meta change and also the weapon tuning update that's coming here soon, I think we would actually have almost like a fresh Halo 5 and for people to play. Now, as far as the game is concerned, about sprint and things like that, those are implements in the game that are not going to be taken out right now. There is nothing that we could do or say to ESL/343 to actually get that removed. So that's like pretty important to understand that sprint is staying. But hypothetically, with Halo 6, if they do listen and take a page out of Call of Duty's book, we're going to have a much better experience with Halo, and we're going to be able to grow the community even more. Now, as far as game types and maps are concerned, we've seen also the same maps within Halo 5, and I think a big reason for people wanting to quit Halo and wanting to go to Call of Duty or just stop competing, there's several different reasons. One reason is the staleness of Halo 5. Another reason is the lack of developer support with Halo 5, and obviously the tournament organizer doesn't really care, and that's going to be ESL. And there's obviously a lot of pieces that are in place, but they're the wrong pieces. And I think that's where we need to, as a community and as a company, 343 Industries needs to humble themselves and just react to the literal fact that the competitive community who has been with the game and has played the game at the highest competitive level for the longest time and have constantly pushed the envelope for competitive console esports as what Halo has done, they would listen to the competitive community about changes happening in the game. Now, I know that the competitive community isn't 100% right. Okay, we're not. We are obviously geared towards competitive, and we also have players that are geared towards social. Now, that's great, and that's fine. The fact that people are still playing Halo is a bit amazing on its own, but the competitive side of the game is dying because of the lack of support, and the fact that they're supporting their social community in an aspect that we should also have, as far as that's concerned. With Double XP, Warzone, and things like that, the social community, like, in all honesty, is super easy to appeal to. It's super easy to relate to them, and it's super easy to take their feedback. Because, one, just a couple things, most of the time they have no idea what they're talking about, and two, sometimes they do, and then they just have really bad ideas. And sometimes you have, people that go, oh, well, this, that, and the other, about game types and such. Now, what 343 does is they obviously look through all the information that has been given and gathered by them, and they obviously choose the smart ones, and they try to make iterations for the social community. And that's great, and that's grand, and that's wonderful, but 343 Industries, this is what you can do to help grow Halo 5. This is what you can do as a company to help improve Halo on a huge scale. I don't care that I'm not the most known person in the world, but I'm a pretty intelligent individual, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But if I'm right, then I'm right. But that's besides the point. So we're going to move forward. So this is what 343 Industries could do as far as them as a company and as far as their esports department for 343. One of the biggest things, obviously, is new maps that are geared towards competitive. The maps that are designed for certain game types and, and things that make sense. Another thing is the adding of game types as far as improving the meta. Now, what will be so cool to see is Slayer, CTF, Strongholds, Extraction, King of the Hill, Oddball, and maybe another game type. Maybe something like Breakout, but that isn't like really bad as far as the game type is concerned, with how the shield and things are. If we were to have those game types and have newer maps that are more designed and geared towards competitive and things that are ran properly and have gone through the exclusive testing of professional players, and obviously their in development team with their quote-unquote pro team, and things like that, if that was a direction that they would take, I think it would actually benefit a lot of people in Halo. Now, another problem that 343 Industries has, as far as content, the staleness of their game, etc., and how to improve that, one of the biggest things that I personally see is there is a very, very, very slow advancement to a weapon tuning or to maps being added. And I understand that these things take time, and I obviously understand the fact that code, if you mess with a single line of code, it can change code in several different parts, and it could, or I'm sorry, not change code, but it could change the way that it affects the game. And I understand that. But the fact that we have companies like Activision, we have, God, who else we have? With Sledgehammer, Treyarch, you have the people that make PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds, the team that makes H1Z1, the teams that are behind a lot of the competitive titles, Counter-Strike, and such like that. They're constantly providing constant content, and they're constantly updating and constantly improving. And sure, they've done this probably definitely a lot longer than 343 Industries, but as far as it goes, they need to start taking pages out of these other developers' book, because as far as it's concerned, Halo is trying to catch up to people who are way far ahead in the race. And the fact is that we have to constantly grow ourselves and push and aim for perfection as far as a game community is concerned. If you want your game to thrive in esports, and if you want Halo 6 to be that game, 343, this is one of the main things that you need to do and you need to focus on. You need to focus on making sure that Halo 6 also does not have stale maps, does not have a stale meta, has constant content, whether it could be a skin that you release for $2.99, but it's an exclusive skin for a week, and you continuously make content. You make weapon skins, you make armor skins for different organizations, weapon skins, different organizations. You're constantly connecting content, and you're connecting with these other things. Like, you could have a Forge Hub weapon skin, or a Red versus Blue weapon skin, or a Rooster Teeth one, or an ESL one. You know, there are so many, or a 343 Industries based one. There are tons and tons of content that can be produced because of the fact that there are partners that are with 343 Industries that will allow them to do it. As far as that's concerned, that stuff needs to start happening, and there needs to be a faster development process with the internal team, as far as getting updates out, making sure the updates are correct. And one big thing too that is definitely a downer for someone getting into Halo 5, one of my friends, Jeff, he hasn't played a Halo game since Halo 3 in 2000. I think the last time he touched it was 2008. He hasn't played a Halo game in quite a long time. And I convinced him to pick up Halo 5, and he gets home and he puts in the disc and it says 104 gigabyte download. There needs to be something worked on to where because I'll put it this way, when you put in a disc for a game and you go to download it and you immediately look at how big of a download it is, that can be a little depressing and pushing on the player. It can also cause them to be like, well, I can't do this today, but I can do it tomorrow. And it causes people who want to get into Halo, but either one can't because they don't have the hard drive space because the Xbox One is standard with 500 gigs, or two, they look at it and it's just such an intimidating download that they don't know if their internet connection is going to be able to actually download it in time to play the game when they have the day off or whatever the case may be. those are things that need to be worked on, and there needs to be more of a constant connection within the amateur and the professional scene. And it doesn't need to be a behind the scenes work where you guys are talking with them. This needs to be more out in the open. That way we know that we feel that 343 Industries cares. And I know you guys want it to grow, and I've spoken to Tashi, I've spoken to Joshua Mink, I spoke to Quindell Hoyo in Atlanta, I spoke to several different people, ESL employees who are working on the event, and there are some that really do care about Halo. There really are individuals who care about Halo. Quindell Hoyo, when I was specifically speaking to him and I was telling him a few things, he wasn't very responsive in that light. And I know he's been moved since then to campaign and stuff like that. But as far as the multiplayer is concerned, there were only a few individuals that I think care, and two of them being Tashi and Joshua Mink. Obviously, I don't know their internal teams or the people working on those teams, but whoever Tashi and Joshua Mink have under them, they seem to be doing a good job. I just think there needs to be more communication aligned with the company, the developer, and the community, because there's still a lack of communication. There's a lack of good maps. It's stale. There's a lack of game types. There's a lack of meta change. There's a lack of continuance and advancement in a fast fashion. So there's a lack of a lot of things, and there's also a lack of content. Those are the biggest things in my mind that really keep Halo from advancing and becoming more of a popular esport. Hey, people love Halo, and people know what Halo is. And yes, I work at Walmart, and yeah, I'm not very proud of it, but it's my job. I gotta pay bills. But that's besides the point. The point is that I talk to people on a consistent basis, and I tell them that I compete in Halo when we're talking about video games and we're talking about shooters. And and I'll ask, I was like, hey, have you played Halo 5, or have you kept up with Halo? They're like, man, I stopped. He was like, I stopped after Halo 4, or I stopped after Halo 3 because either the game wasn't appealing to these older players who love the franchise so much, or there was just a lack of wanting to get either like an Xbox One, or or just not wanting to play the game because their sprint and abilities, or whatever the case may be. There were several different reasons across the board. And I think if you were able to fix those things that I mentioned towards the end of this video and throughout the video, I think 343 Industries, that you could be the best developer that Halo has ever seen. But we need you guys to step up. I don't know if you're seeing the numbers and if you're realizing what's happening, but if the next Halo game does not have somewhat of an integrated ladder/ranking system, and a good ranking system that's based on something the community wants, and that is aligned for real competitive advancement, as far as how many matches you have to win and where you get placed when you first start, as far as competing is concerned in that playlist. There needs to be a lot, and I feel like there needs to be a direction change, and there needs to be that internal multiplayer team that is for competitive, and that team that is for campaign and things like that. And that multiplayer team that goes to create these games needs to create settings that are universal. And I think the best universal settings is to weapon tune all the weapons in Halo 5 to where they're actually completely balanced, then go back, use the HCS radar that's currently in Halo 5, take all of your weapon tuning and your updates and your data and everything that you've gained from Halo 5 as your esports learning experience, take that and put it into Halo 6 and create the best damn Halo game we have ever seen. Because at this point in time, that is the only thing that's going to save Halo. That's it. That is it. And Halo 6 cannot be washed. It has to be consistent. The content has to be there. There has to be continuous developer support throughout the year, no matter what. You guys have to really care for your game if you want the scene to really, really improve. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching my video. This is your boy Red Ghost, and peace.